Awesome, thank you. Welcome you guys to the December meeting of the Camden Harbor Committee. My little can spiel, I should just record it and play it. This is a public meeting. It is being recorded on YouTube and Zoom. Minutes are being taken. If you have questions, comments, please try to direct them through me. We have a small group today, so we can keep it a little bit more free form probably. Yeah, I think that's about it. Actually, on that note, Bruce, slightly off topic, but it's related, so I think it's relevant. I just learned from Janice that Zoom keeps minutes, takes minutes. Were you aware of this? Because I was not.
Vaguely, because Tom, when he took minutes, he said he got some, and I think Janice sent out an email. They're very
They're cryptic and they're not perfect, but
right, but they're lengthy.
So it may help, I didn't even know they existed.
Is that using this voice recognition stuff?
I guess
Yes, it's A1 software.
Yeah.
So it transcribes it, and you have to edit people. It'll say,
Yeah.
probably just say Janice said this,
Yeah.
Janice said this, because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's like,
But, you
Like-
don't put it all in there, but at least gives you.
It might be a good referral when I can't remember
it's
something.
like
Yeah, well, exactly, that's
OCR,
what I was
optical
thinking.
character recognition.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Correct about every other word.
Mr. Pixley, good morning. Just getting started. All right, item number 1, public input on non-agenda items. Mr. Thompson.
I am going to relinquish my position as vice chair of the committee.
Okay.
So I request the committee take necessary action to find a successor.
Thank you. Don't know exactly what the necessary action is, other than
Find a new one.
Other than to elect a new one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Since we don't need to do that today, why don't we hold off on that? And we'll do that at the next meeting. We'll elect a new vice chair. We'll nominate and then elect. So nominations will be taken at the next meeting.
I had thought about that, though.
Okay.
Perhaps the new vice chair would be the person who would step into, kind of like a role of succession. They would step into the chairmanship of the following.
Oh,
year.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't
I
know
know
what
that's
the
my,
rules are. Yep.
I've seen it work in other places, but
That sounds good to me.
of course it might eliminate candidates.
Right, exactly, right. You want to
Careful what
set the
you
bar.
want. Could I make a suggestion that you accept, I don't know how I do it, this is a formal movement,
Yeah, it's on.
motion, whatever, but that you accept names of nominees in email, and then we could discuss who they might be at the next meeting? Who might be on a ballot? Does that help you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, over the next month, send me nominees, and we'll go from there. Yeah, that sounds fine. Actually.
Maybe solicit nominees.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Email to the committee.
yep,
Is that-
yeah, right. Yeah, for the people that aren't here and stuff today. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Elliot, for your service as vice chairman. It was very
It's
useful.
largely honorary or ceremonial, whatever you call it.
When's the retirement party?
Other non-agenda items? Do we have any more?
Couple of years.
I have one non-agenda item that I will raise, sort of following up on our meeting last month, where we did that workshop with the planning board afterwards about the planning board's initiative to ban piers, breakwater structures, and other structures in the outer and coastal harbors. Let's see, a couple of things happened after that. Number one, I was told, I heard that they were going to do a workshop at the planning board level on this, and I thought it was on the 7th. So I conferred with Jeremy Martin on that one, and I guess they had been talking about it, but they decided not to do it on the 7th. So that has not yet happened. But in terms of next steps for that proposal, that is my understanding, is that the next thing that will happen is that the planning board will have a workshop amongst itself. Sometimes they take public input on those. Sometimes they don't. But they would do a workshop on it, and then I think they would have a public hearing on it, so that they could develop their final wording, all with an eye towards putting their initiative to ban peers on the June ballot. And in order to get that done, it has to be finalized and all of that by I think it's March. So it all has to move pretty quickly. I will be participating in that public hearing and all of that. But I think anyone on the Harbor Committee that wants to participate, I would welcome you to participate in those hearings. They do want to hear from people. They've said that. So let's try to all be as involved as we can.
So
Also-
there's to be a workshop and then.
My understanding is a
hearing?
workshop first, kind of a, brainstorming session, very much looser. Again, that's generally just with the planning board. They sometimes take public comment, but sometimes they don't. But you can still hear a lot and understand a lot. They're all public meetings, so they're all welcome. The planning board does, I think, almost all of their things now. I think maybe all of it on Zoom.
Mhm.
So the town website has that link and all of that, and Janice has it also, of course. What else?
Tom.
I'll get to him. He'll be in a minute.
Okay.
Also related to that, I did receive a letter from an attorney representing a homeowner on Bayview Street, whose name eludes me at this very second. Betsy Sherman, I believe is her name. And that was the pier that we reviewed quite a while ago now. And the planning board reviewed, but then the select board had not. So anyway, I sent a rather lengthy letter and included me on it, CC'd me on it, I guess it was. Sort of expressing his opinion, obviously, that the select board should take up her application, and that he thought I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he thought the moratorium should come to an end. So anyway, that was the letter, and then he followed up with a conversation with me.
And then he
That's
what?
like I followed up with a conversation. He called me.
Oh.
So just want to kind of keep you guys in the loop on that.
Was the letter to you or to?
No, the letter was to the select board, I believe. Yeah, it was to the select board. And he just sent it to me. I think either he sent it to me afterwards or he CC'd me. I don't remember, honestly.
The committee get copied on that?
We can. I mean, he sent it to me. So if you want to see the letter, yeah.
In the interest of transparency, communications.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And he sent it. I mean, he sent it to the select board, so it's a public document at this point, I think. So anyway, that's that. Other public input on non-agenda items,
As
Jim?
a public member? Yeah, so, I've had a number of people ask me about the tide gauge in the harbor, which apparently this idea has been kicking around for a while. It's not new. And just wondering if because I've spoken to Jeremy and I think a couple of the select board people about this. Sophie Romana is another one. Is there something going on? Because I was interested in trying to perhaps support that idea. And I don't want to take up time now, but I could explain why I think that's an important.
I'm sorry, it's a proposal for installing a tide gauge in Camden?
Yeah, tide measurement device. The Harbor of Belfast was doing something about this some time ago, and they actually trialed a piece of gear, and then they gave it up. But there are reasons for wanting to understand better, what the dynamics of the tide systems are in this part of the world. If you look at the history from the last 3 or 4 years, how the tide predictions have been inaccurate with respect to what we're actually seeing in Camden Harbor. generally speaking, we're seeing much higher tides than predicted. But, this would help to try to come up with better ways of predicting. And I know that the people at NOAA who are responsible for this were supportive of the Belfast proposal. And I'm not sure, but I think they would be supportive of trying to get something going either here in Camden or Belfast. But at any rate, my question is, is anybody aware of any action being taken on the part of the town to pursue this?
Wasn't there one at the yacht club for a while?
Yeah, there was.
And then it failed or something?
Well, it didn't fail, but so the commercial product that's out there is being sold for profit.
Oh, okay.
And the way it generally works is that you get a subscription to the service that provides the gear, and then they charge you an annual fee
Okay.
for basically use of the gear and some guarantee about the performance of the equipment. So it's not, it's by no means a simple matter to get a functioning system. Tide gauges are, the reason they aren't all over the place is because it's very difficult to actually measure tide. You have to find a way to dampen out all of the wave motions and so forth. Get the noise out of the signal so that you can actually have a consistent measurement of a mean level.
But it's not so important that you get it right. It's important that it's consistent
The
across
trend,
time.
yes, and that you're able to see, the trend. So anyway, that was a question, and I guess my follow-up is, does the committee want to consider this as a possible future initiative? And I know we're not supposed to initiate this, so I guess I would say I was going to have conversations again with some select board individuals, and I don't know, Steve, who's the right people to talk to about this, but
I think probably be
Jeremy,
Jeremy. It'd probably be Jeremy Martin.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if this could get tied in. There is this proposal, which I think is moving forward, to redo the public landing. Essentially, they've
Yeah.
gotten some grants and all of that.
Yeah.
That seems like something that they might want to tie in with that, and
Yeah.
that might be the way to do it.
Yeah.
So why don't I'll ask Jeremy.
Again, as they say, tide is a deep subject. But with the plans that are going forward in the harbor, the waterfront park, the waterfront pier, the town waterfront, the base flood elevation was set back in, I think it was 2019 for this by the Army Corps for the downtown harbor area is pretty significant. And, again, it's based on the prevailing knowledge at the time that was done, which is really based on 10-year-old information.
I think we have to be a little bit careful because that does, all those flood elevations affect so many other things like flood insurance and all the rest of it. It's a huge thing. But I think getting more information
this is
we're not going to supplemental.
Yeah, we're not going to usurp or overstep
Exactly.
the authority of the Army Corps of Engineers. No, it's just that the Corps of Engineers, as well as NOAA, do have an interest in what measurements are being taken and how,
Absolutely.
and they will use the information. And I've spoken to some of the people at the Army Corps about this, and also we have Joe Stankiewicz, who's in town here, who's a employee at NOAA, who has offered to connect me with some of the people that are involved
Cool.
with this.
Let's do it. Let me, why don't we, the next steps, if you will, I'll reach out to Jeremy and ask him
Yeah,
if there's interest in this thing, and then I'll probably maybe can contact you and we'll take it from there.
Maybe put it on the agenda for next meeting or something.
Yeah, it's such a long long process, but we'll see. Yeah. What is there any other non-agenda items? Because I have one more. Was this? I was not able to attend, but I know that I think some of you guys did. This Camden Can Climate Group had a presentation at the. Did you went to that, Jim? Didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Did anybody else by chance get to that? No. Can you give us the 2-minute synopsis? I confess that I
No,
was out of
no
the loop on
problem.
it.
Yeah, so it was on the 7th of December. It was hosted down at the library. This organization has been in existence, I guess, as such since around about June of this summer. It's really, when I try to find out who is actually a member of this organization or what constitutes this organization in terms of membership, I haven't been able to find out, although I know that Molly Mulhern has been the principal actor in terms of what's been happening, and she's been publishing what she calls a newsletter since June, and it's on the web, and I can provide. It's not easy to find, but one of my curiosities is to try to find out who exactly is Camden Can, and they do state, their objectives, which are to promote understanding and action with regards to the various effects of climate change. And the CAN, the CAN in Camden Action, Camden Can stands for Climate Action Now. Okay, so it is they tout themselves as a citizen-led organization, and that their goal is to reduce Camden's contribution to climate change through local action, education, advocacy, and resources. The people that spoke were Sarah Miller. She's a former member of the Conservation Commission. A young gentleman named Alex Fock, who worked on the watershed project that put together this report about sea level rise. Janet McMahon, who's with the Watershed School, and she sponsored that or worked with the students on that project. Jeremy Martin spoke, and he was the one who spent the majority of the time speaking, and Dave St. Laurent, who's the Public Works Director. And I think most significantly, Jeremy kind of went through an inventory of all the projects that are ongoing or recently initiated by the town that are focused on energy conservation and energy savings. And he went through kind of the inventory of where all the power in Camden is going, where it's being consumed. And interestingly enough, the single largest consumer by far is the Snowball, and which didn't kind of surprise me. I was thinking maybe it was the waste treatment plant or something like that. But no, the largest single consumer of electricity in Camden is the Snowball, he said, by a substantial margin. He also mentioned that the frequency of flooding now, that we're seeing 100-year storms every year, which was also echoed by Dave St. Laurent, which is having the most immediate effect, on the town's infrastructure, and is really causing problems with what the town's trying to do in terms of maintaining that infrastructure. I guess the majority of or not the majority, but a substantial portion of the town's wastewater system is 150-year-old clay pipe. and a great deal of that is still in place. And he talked a little bit about the Wood report. That's was the work contracted by the town to do an assessment of risk for flooding at the waterfront. And then that was significant input to the plan that's being executed now for the, actually it's going to be executed for the renovation of the waterfront landing. He talked about there being a lot of money, public money available for doing studies and, engineering analyses and that sort of thing to help communities get involved in that, improving their resilience. And that he's got he's been working on a checklist for, resiliency planning for the town. And then, that was, I think that's enough to be, he had the majority of the floor time. Dave St. Laurent was very concise and very informative about the problems that they're having with the stormwater handling and treatment and so forth. And that there's something like $300,000 a year is being added to their costs because of the additional pumping that they have to do when they have overflow conditions. So, at any rate, I had one of only 2 questions
Oh, wow.
that were read, and I wasn't attributed to that. But so my question was to Jeremy is, what is the town's plan for resilience of the harbor? And the answer that Jeremy gave was that, well, they're working on the plan for the public landing. But it's kind of like my question didn't connect because I was asking about the harbor,
Right.
and he answered about the public landing. And the problem is bigger than the public landing. In fact, the public landing is only a portion of the town's property that's at risk. So the answer was, well, we're working on the public landing. And I think there's a gap.
Well, I think I appreciate you going to that and asking that question. And I do think it behooves all of us on this committee, or even with an interest in this committee, to attend those meetings if at all possible. I'll say I'm impressed by this group and their ability to kind of pull a meeting off. They do have the town's support at this point. So I think that it would be a good idea for us to, I can reach out to, to Molly Mulhern.
I think she'd be the one.
Yeah, and just sort of, I think it's awesome. But I do, to your point, Jim, I do want to make sure they're focused on the town. Camden Climate Action Now as the entire town. So that includes the Snow Bowl and Bald Mountain or whatever it is. We're really just focused on the harbor, but I want to make sure that the harbor does get fair representation, full representation on that. And I think you're exactly right, Jim. There are other things that we've talked about here, whether it's a breakwater on the outer harbor or something else. I think it's important that we do look at the whole harbor as opposed to just the public landing. And if the public landing is moving forward with some sort of a redo, we should know about that as well. So,
Mr. Chairperson, I think I think we're going to know about the redo on the public harbor. It's going to, how things move in the town. I mean, your grandkids are going to know about it. It's not going to happen in a.
this one seems to be moving faster than that.
Good. I like your enthusiasm, but I don't see. Well, I mean, it's a different subject. But to your point, Jeremy, his answer, because he's not a harbor user. So any non-harbor user is going to say, "Oh, the harbor, we're working on it,"
Right.
Because they only know the harbor by the public landing. They don't know the other factions, Lake Beach and Curtis Island and other Steamboat Landing even the library park, that whole wall there, and the fact that that's getting eroded. I mean, there's definitely, so we could put together, 4 or 5 points and say, well, no, here's the things you really have to do, not just a new harbor master office and make it higher and stuff like that. So,
So, yeah.
Thank you, Steve. I would suggest maybe, well, this is just a suggestion, but maybe ask Molly to come and tell us what they're about.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and
That's exactly my
I mean,
thought.
one of the big questions in my mind is what exactly is the relationship, between this organization and the town?
Mhm.
I mean, clearly Jeremy is using them as a resource to get basically PR for what the town is doing.
Mhm.
That's basically what the meeting was on the 7th, was for the town to get a public forum to say, okay, here's what we're doing. And it was a good forum for that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I guess the question is what is their actual relationship with the town? Because they seem to have been given more significant stature. I mean, that the way it was explained is they're acting as almost a formal part of the town, as like a standing committee almost to get public input, which I don't know. I mean, that's to be
Well, let's get
clarified.
that from her. I think that's a great question to ask. All right. Thank you for that, Jim. Any other non-agenda items? See none. All right, let's move on. Meeting minutes, November. Did anybody get a chance to read the meeting minutes? And if you did, would you entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to accept by Jim, thank you. We have a second on the motion to accept the November minutes. Thank you, Elliot. Motion is second on the November minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the November minutes? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Oh, I should have said on this that, I mean, it's de facto obvious, but Jim, as an alternate member of this committee, is a voting member today because we don't have all of our full complement today. Committee members, so moving on, committee membership update. We are down 1 as a result because Tom Griffin has resigned from the committee after the last meeting. Tom resigned. So there's that.
Now, what's the
I
process?
have to find that out from the
that.
select board yet again.
I know that the select board takes applications.
Yes, exactly.
And Jim, if you want to become a voting member, you have to put in an application.
Oh, I got to do another application?
He does?
I did in order for me to get to become a voting member from an alternate.
Oh.
I've suggested that be changed, that the
I think you get a free
alternates
cup of
are-
coffee when you do that. though. I think you get a free cup of coffee when you get
Free
there.
cup?
though, yeah.
I thought I owed somebody.
The second
coffee.
application, you get a cup of coffee, yeah.
Well,
Okay. All right, well,
So, yeah, that's where that
I'll
is.
stop by Janice's desk and pick one up.
All right. Okay, fee schedule recommendations. I hope everyone is impressed by my editing of this PDF. Took me quite a while to figure out how to do this.
Professional.
This is a review of, this is everything that we have discussed in past meetings. Hopefully synopsized into a document that Jody can take and present to the select board, or I should say, put into her, however she wants to present it, but it carries all of our notes. Did anybody see anything there that I missed? There's one item that I think we might want to adjust, and this is because when I sent this to this committee, Jody chimed in by email to me and said the late payment penalty per applicable item, which we changed to 10% of fee. She pointed out that some of the late fees are for really small things, like a dinghy permit or something like that. And they have to send it out via certified mail, and that costs, I think she said, I don't know, it's $8 or $10 or something like that to do that. So she said it might be, if it's only 10% of $200, then it was going to be something very small. So she was like, so maybe there should be a minimum is what I was thinking, minimum $40. And up to, beyond that is 10% of the fee. What do you guys think of that change?
Yeah, just so you know, so look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be here all week. Jody, who's my clerk and I've got to keep happy, pulled me aside and said, can you make sure you stress this, that it should be something of that, of what Mr.
minimum.
The chairperson just said, $40 or of a minimum, and then 10%, or 10% if whatever's more.
Or is greater.
Yeah. This way you're accomplishing, I think, what you guys want to accomplish by making it fair, but make it so my clerk is happy.
If you're late for the wait list, the $25,
It's 40 is what we had currently. So we'd be,
so it'd be 25 plus 40.
no, I think it would be, so if you're late for your, let's just say it's a $200, not math's not my strong suit, but let's just go with this. So if it's a $200 fee and you're late for it, you would, 10% of that is $20, right?
Yep.
Right. So that barely covers the mailing of the certified thing. So
Right.
we don't want to do 10% on that. So it would be $40 for that. You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, I understand that, but what about like the wait list where it's only a $25 fee to begin with?
Same, $40.
Same thing.
$40.
It's $40
$40 minimum.
or 10%,
10%,
whatever's more.
whichever is greater.
Okay.
I do want to do a motion on that if that is acceptable. Jim,
Yes, I'll
Thank-
make a motion.
Well, what is the motion?
Like, change the,
Do you want, okay, I move that the fee on late payment of costs owed be either $40 minimum or 10% of the amount that was owed,
whichever is greater.
whichever is larger.
Whichever is greater.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said $40 minimum.
$40 minimum, which is the current, that is the current late penalty fee. It's the thing in yellow there at the bottom.
There
Or
is a-
10%,
of the fee owed,
whichever is more.
whichever is
Yep.
more.
Well, doesn't that defeat the purpose of what we?
No, that says what we said. So you're going to pay $40 minimum, or if you've got a $2,000, fee that you were late on, you're going to pay 10% of that.
200, yeah.
Which is more.
I believe that previously we discussed making it 10% of the applicable fee.
We did, but the problem is the applicable fees in some cases is less than $40.
Yeah, it's like $120 for an 18-foot boat out of harbor mooring.
This is per the harbor master's input today.
This is per the harbor clerk's input.
Which is even more important.
Via the harbor master.
Yeah.
And it's because it wouldn't cover the
Costs,
costs of
certified mail,
enforcing this the wait list.
staff time.
And can anyone cite why we decided on 10% as our metric previously in previous discussions?
Yeah.
I mean, we bandied it around. I remember quite a bit.
The idea was to make it more fair. If you only owed $100, or if you have a $3,000 fee because you have 2 inner harbor floats and a finger float, you should be paying more if you're late because that's money that we don't have.
Or if it's for instance, a windjammer or day sailor, which is, I forget, 3,000, 4,000, something like
Yeah.
that.
Or 3 windjammers.
Or a whole bunch of windjammers and you're late, then it's a significant amount. And we wanted to make sure that in that case, they would be paying more than $40.
Yeah. Unlike a bank where you bounce a check, it's still $35. Doesn't matter if it's a $10 or for 1 million. But we
So-
want to make it fairer than that.
So we have a motion, I'm going to restate your motion, Jim, that the late payment penalty per applicable item is set at a minimum of $40 or 10% of the total fee, whichever is greater.
And is there a fee that is more than $400 that applies to?
Yes.
Yeah.
The windjammers and day sailors on
Non-resident finger float.
Yeah. You can have if you're you know, Rocky, he's got 2 Inner Harbor floats.
All right, very good.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second on that? Anyone?
I'll say.
Bruce seconds that. Thank you. Further discussion on that one?
I have a question.
Yep.
Even though I made the motion.
Yeah.
How frequently are we experiencing beyond grace period, late payments? Because this would make it a large incentive not to be late, which I think is fine.
I mean, it doesn't actually change many of them because many of them are
In the
smaller
minimum.
smaller amounts. But for the larger ones, yeah, it definitely does.
But I mean, how frequently is it happening? I guess is my question.
I don't know the answer to that.
Do we have a lot of delinquent?
I don't know the answer to that
payments?
one. Jody would have that.
Anyway, this would be a significant incentive.
Yep. All right. Further discussion on that item. All those in favor of that 4-0. Thank you very much. Any other changes? And Steve, now that you're here.
Josh.
Yep, Richard.
It's probably time to put the heading on this as 2024.
I debated doing that, but I thought that was,
By the time it gets approved, it
Yes.
will be next year.
it really will be 2024. Good call. Steve, since you are here, I wanted to make sure you understood where how we got to this adjust to include pump out fee determined by harbor master. Did you follow this at the last meeting?
Yeah, a little bit.
Basically, we wanted to figure out how much the windjammers are using the pump out service, and not on an individual basis. We figure out an average. We say, okay, they're all using it 10 times a month, 5 times a month. I don't know what the number is. And then you say, okay, so the windjammers are costing us essentially X. We want to add that amount to their fee. We don't want to charge them on an individual basis. We want to say, listen, you're paying, call it $100. You're paying $100 as part of your fee. So right now the windjammers are $4,200, right?
Mhm.
Well, you're going to pay $4,300 next year, but your pump out is included in that. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so we've asked you to figure out for the windjammers how much it should be increased, and then the select board will decide whether or not to increase their fee by that amount. Same for the day sailors. It's a way to make it easier to manage, so we sure as heck didn't want to be doing,
Yeah.
here's your $20 for pumping out your pump out tank.
Yep.
But we also wanted to kind of incentivize it and say, okay, great, you've already paid it. It's part of your thing. Now it's essentially free.
Yeah.
So let's use it a lot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Make sure that you're using it, which is the goal.
Yeah, that's
That makes sense to you?
that $100 is
I made that number. It could be
Close.
$20, could be
you know,
$300. I don't know.
I mean, different boats use it, different mortgages, they have different size holding tanks, and they carry more people and whatever, but
Just some sort of base average that the
Yeah.
windjammer fee for pump out is X, the day sailor fee for pump out is Y. Because I think it does behoove us, to, like I said, inspire them to do it, even if they can go 3 miles offshore, whatever it is, and pump out. Let's have them use ours. You know what I mean? And then it's cleaner. We know where it's going. I'm happier with that. Any other thoughts on the fee schedule? Elliot had asked that we send this back through the committee, so I want to get this to the select board like this afternoon. So
Do we need to vote on these changes? as
no,
a
because
whole?
we voted on them all as we went. That was the good news.
Oh, okay.
That was as we went. So we voted on those. All right, moving on.
Will the committee be copied on the final document that's submitted to the select board?
No, this is it. The only change will be, and I'm actually going to probably just converse with Jody or something about this 10%, minimum $40 or 10% of the fee, whichever is greater. This is the document.
Josh,
Yes, sir.
under day sailor fees, overnight dockage has a typo.
The dokage? Thank you. Good one.
I've been doking my boat for years.
Uh-huh.
he's always spout on.
All right, let's go to the meat of the meeting now. I'm trying to keep this meeting short, so I'm failing. And we have the fisherman, windjammer, and day sailor applications reviews. The windjammers and day sailors are on 3-year licenses, right? Yeah, we did. So this is essentially our check with them, check in. Steve's done. You saw the note, his review of the day. Let's do the day sailors first because they're at the top of his page. I'm not going to read through it because you guys can all read, but it appears that he has no problems with any of the day sailors. That seems to be working well. I did want to sort of, since you're here, Steve, ask you about the periwinkle because that's new this year. That was our additional boat, if you will. How did that go? That went well, it sounds like.
Yeah, the boat. It's really the user of the boat. You say periwinkle, but Dom and his wife Liz are, they work well with the others. A lot of times, it's a very unique. It's only power boats we have, and so for some reason, it's a little more versatile. He will ask to bend a few things once in a while, but he's make sure he has to sometimes diverge from the schedule, and
For a
he'll
private charter.
for whatever reason. Like sometimes he even has to use, public landing. He's like, can I just pick up right here, even though it's just one-time thing, even though the ordinance says you can't run a day sailor off the town line. If it's early in the season and nothing's going on and there's an issue going on with the day sailor flow because someone's got a bad starter or whatever, go ahead, Dom. He's good at making sure that the other guys don't, get, hey, how come Don gets to do that and I don't? Because that's the big thing is just balancing these guys and some egos and feelings and stuff like that. But the short answer is, it worked out a lot smoother than I actually thought it would with having 7 boats for the first time running at capacity.
Yeah.
I was impressed how they worked out.
Awesome. Elliot.
Does the periwinkle operate as a second boat? That has its own
Has its own license.
Yeah, it has its own permit.
And what about Owl?
Same. Has its own license.
Well, that makes 8 boats.
OLED, Owl, Lively Lady, Periwinkle, Surprise, Heritage,
Lazy Jack.
Lazy Jack. 7.
Heritage, Surprise, Lively Lady, Periwinkle, Olod, Owl, Swift.
No, the
Swift
Swift
is not a day
Swift is not a
sailor.
day sailor. That's a windjammer. He has a windjammer berth and he does not do day sails.
All right. Anyone have any? Let's take them category by category. Does anybody have anything further on the day sailors? All right. Moving on.
It's working well.
Working well. We like that, Steve. Windjammers. So we currently have 4 windjammers. Am I right?
Well,
Angelique.
5 because we got the 3 at the head of the harbor and then we got the Mercantile and the Swift.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
However, the Mercantile is actively for sale and it may go before the spring and it might not stay. So we might be down to 4 windjammers, which is a different discussion, not to be had here, but yeah, I mean, they're all veterans, of the game. So we don't have any issues there.
But the 5 that we have, I mean, look like you had no problem with any of them.
No.
Are there any complaints about like the fees and the service and stuff like that coming in and out of anything? I mean, we seem to be losing schooners.
Yeah, but that's not because of that.
But
I was just,
Yeah.
just asking.
Yeah. What about sort of overall working in the harbor? These are big boats. Some of them don't have engines in them. Most of them don't have engines in them. Working with other users in the harbor. Do they play well with others? Do they abide by you have control of the harbor? Do they do what you say? Quite literally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want. There's a few times where I have to remind them that, hey, like if there's a 4th of July parade for the kids. Sometimes I get some flack from head of the harbor. What do they have to do at 10 o'clock? That's when we leave, and you guys can, set and leave a half hour early one day, so the yacht club kids can celebrate and their parents can watch them parade around for 4th of July. And don't tell me you can't. We're running a business here. Yep, and I'm running a harbor for a whole community. So you got to bend a little bit. And I tell them, I'm pretty flat out, you know, you guys work with us here. You know, we want to work with you. Why don't you work with us? It happens once in a blue moon, but for 99% of the time, they're definitely really good at it.
And they do respond once you mention that.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
Good.
They need a little reminder once in a while.
Awesome. Couple questions. Hesper, any chance they would come into one of those slots?
I'm
or-
sure Hesper would love to, you know, he runs out of from a mooring, and he's doing 3-day trips. Yeah, I'm sure he's mentioned to me, you know, if there's any way, you know, I could get a spot.
And is he going to be sticking around?
I think so. Well, I mean,
I heard that he's heading back to England in a year or two or something like that.
I didn't hear that, but
It was a rumor I heard from another schooner crew.
right now, Ray sold the Mistress, but then he filled that spot with the Swift. He sold the Grace Bailey, but the Mercantile used to share that spot at the very end of the town landing with the Grace Bailey. So it'd be hard for the town to say, oh, let's get another boat with a different owner. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster because it's two different boats tied up to each other. However, if the Merc sells, then we will have a spot that's viable. The town can say, yes, we do want to put a windjammer there, and the select board, it's up to the select board to decide if they want to rent that spot to a windjammer. So they could say, and obviously their prerogative, and I think it's a great discussion. No, we don't want another windjammer there. We want to use that for whatever. So that'll be discussion if and when that happens.
So-
Should be discussion now, so we get an
Yeah,
idea.
so I think, so first let's, does anyone have any questions, concerns about the existing windjammers and their
I have one more
operations?
question.
Yep.
At one point this spring, there was going to be 2 boats tied up at Stuart Smith's dock, the Appledore and that other schooner that came
Never at
in.
the same time,
What?
not at the same
Never
time.
at the same time. okay.
Yeah, no, that's,
And did that work out okay? I mean, I know we don't have any control.
yeah, they were never tied up to each other.
Okay.
But they're so small, it probably would be a little tighter, but it would work. But no, they didn't do that.
Welcome, Mark. Elliot,
Steve, you mentioned the Hesper operates off a mooring.
Correct.
And what is the point of landing for their operation?
They use both steamboat landing, and once in a while they'll come in with their little rubber dinghy and they'll pick up supplies. They'll come in. It's a little 14-foot little rubber boat, so they come in and they tie up at wherever. I think he's got a dinghy permit for that, and he'll just let it go get some supplies and then come back to the mooring.
So that's an operation that's not licensed by the town,
that's correct.
and they use town facilities to support their operation.
That is correct.
Well, they pay for the dinghy dock and they use the dinghy dock.
Yes.
But not as a commercial user.
Mhm.
Is that appropriate?
Oh, well, if you read what we're supposed to be supporting, and we're supposed to be supporting marine businesses, so I think it's very appropriate.
Well, it is,
And we have to,
Crazy. I do have, my only question with that, I think it's a beautiful boat. I love the operation and all of that. I do wonder if it has any licenses whatsoever with the town. And it is, if it is formally operating from town facilities, whether it's steamboat landing or the public landing, even via dinghy, it would seem that the town needs to be involved. We need to have a license. We need to have a, fee. Otherwise it's if it's operating as a business, as a formal business in Camden, I would think that it needs to have some sort of oversight. We have to make sure when we have our commercial passenger vessel license agreements, these businesses all have to submit Coast Guard, documents. They have that they're inspected, or et cetera, et cetera. If this is not a formal business, if this is just somebody who is loading up and taking passengers, or taking people out on his or her boat, that's a different animal, in my opinion. But if it's a formal business, then I guess I do think we need to be involved. So,
It's a commercial passenger vessel. Whether it's licensed by the town or not, it's operating as such. It charges a fee and takes people out and does the same trips as the other windjammers, same types of trips. And they're not paying $4,200 a year.
no,
That's a definite advantage.
well, yeah, but they don't have a berth.
They don't have,
They
don't have a
don't,
berth.
they don't have a berth in the inner harbor. They can't dock their boat and get electricity and,
they found a way to circumvent.
well, I
Well,
don't think,
Angelique is that way also. I mean, they're a private berth, so they don't pay for their berthing. They just
They do.
operate as a second boat.
No, not, you don't mean Angelique, you mean
Or not,
Angela.
Angica,
But they are operating off of private property only,
exactly.
whereas this is operating off of public property. The Hesper is operating off of the public landing and steamboat landing to take on and off goods and
yeah,
passengers.
victuals and passengers.
Yeah.
Well, remember, there's probably 4 other smaller boats for the last 20 years that have run businesses, taking people out for hire, overnight, day sales. And so if you open up that can of worms, and maybe you should, I mean, maybe that is
I think it's a worthwhile question. It's going to be outside of our bailiwick. But I think it is a worthwhile question, and I think the appropriate avenue is to ask Audra. And I think it would start with her to say, here's the situation. This is operated for this year.
I would think you guys the committee would want to have a discussion maybe next week or next month and talk about this and then bring it we can bring it to Audra and the select board. And that's how the committee works. We're an advisory committee.
Bring them a solution rather than a problem.
Well, because basically, look at the other commercial moorings we have. We have commercial rental moorings.
And we're not talking about the moorings, we're talking about I'm only talking about the loading and unloading at the public landing or steamboat landing. That's the use of commercial property.
Yeah.
That's all we're, so I guess that's a good point. We could put this on.
Historically, over the years, and many years, we've had people doing small charter operations, and loading off the public landing or
Yeah.
steamboat.
Yep.
Donnie Mann, relatively recently, you go back to ancient history, Milky Way,
Yep. Nancy Rose got
and
Cimarron there. What's his name?
a Cimarron. Yep.
So this is not
And I-
a new,
Yeah.
And I think
I hesitate to call it an issue, but
it's not a new thing, but wasn't, Rich, I'm looking at you, wasn't the criteria that changed it was if you had a regularly scheduled trips or advertised trips, there was some sort of basically, I think the idea was that if it was sort of hit or miss, sort of irregularly scheduled kind of situation, that would be one thing. But if it was something that was more
Yeah,
regular-
but this is where it gets really gray in the weeds, because that's if you were going to bring your actual vessel, your 100-foot vessel or whatever vessel you're using to the dock to need it. These guys are bringing their 14-foot rubber dinghy and picking up gas and ice and stuff and going out to their boat, and it's not that much of an impact. But if you think it's worth talking about, you should.
Why don't we, we've raised it on this one, but why don't we shelve it for now? I think it is worth a larger conversation. Let's keep to the existing licenses because we do have some more to talk about. Any more on the Windjammers to talk about? Doesn't sound like we had any other major issues there. All right, and then let's go to the fishermen. Or here, should we just, do we need a motion on these guys? Why don't we do that? Why don't we do a motion to recommend renewal of the Windjammer and Day Sailor applications for renewal? Anybody want to throw that in?
I'm not going to do it again, so somebody else. can.
I'll make that
There
motion.
we go.
Thank you, Mark. We have a motion to recommend renewal of the existing Windjammer and Day Sailor applications, seconded by Bruce. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Up to 5. Blue.
Even
Love it.
better.
I love it. Okay. Now let's go to the fishermen. And we have all their applications with Steve's notes on the back or again, I'm not going to read through them individually, but if anybody has thoughts or comments that they want to share.
Steve, I see 7 applications. I saw 7. Is that a reduction?
It is. It is. There's, I believe one gentleman decided not to, he wasn't using it anyway. First of all, Kent Bradstreet sold his boat, younger, that's Mark Bradstreet's son. He's no longer fishing, so he doesn't need it. And I believe He used to own Canned Heat. I can't remember his name. I never saw him.
Yeah.
He decided he's not going to use it either. I mean, he was one of those gentlemen like Art Tibbetts who would say, "I want to pay for this," but he would use it
They
once.
never show up.
He'd show up once a year and whatever, because to do something, but I guess he realized he really doesn't need it. So yeah.
He's back.
So
Yeah, Art Tibbetts is back, but he's an example of someone who pays for it,
Oh,
but
doesn't use it very often.
you see him once a year because he's so busy on the other parts of the coast doing what he does, which is marine work,
So is Camden not a desirable spot for lobstermen?
I'm not sure if that's really worded correctly. I just think that it's a limited, spot. So we usually, I had it at 9 at one point. We don't want any more than that, just because it's a small place and it's so busy. And I said, this is fine right here. Let's try this. We're not going to see a difference because besides Kent used it a lot for the 3 years, but
Yeah, okay.
All right, I had no questions on 6 of them.
That's
Um,
right, Jeff.
But you had some comments on Toby Winkelhofer's application that I did want to talk about. And it sounded, I worried a little bit that we're getting into your management weeds, which we always try not to do. But so that I understand it correctly, there is parallel to the wharf, right alongside the pilings, there's a float right where the crane is
Yeah.
essentially. And that is it's essentially a loading and unloading float, right?
Yeah.
So for fishermen come, they take their crates off, throw them up on the wharf on the thing, and up it goes.
traditionally that was load and unload. Don't leave your boat there ever.
Yeah.
The other one that's running perpendicular to that, because remember there's like a horseshoe from that.
Yeah.
That one was if you had a bad starter or something was wrong with your engine, you can, with my permission, leave that boat there overnight, and so have someone come in, a specialist from whatever, Augusta, whatever, come in and fix your boat. The other one, which was laying this side, that was for the harbor master boat, the tug. A while back, I would put the tug out on a mooring because I rarely used it, and so these guys would need it more, and they appreciated the fact that I slowly started letting them leave their boats there, as long as there was no quarrels among them. Out of the 5 people that actually use that, I said to them, "Look, the folks, there's a gray area on what the harbor master is supposed to allow here for the fee but as long as you guys don't care, a lot of folks at night like to come and see the fishing fleet right here that we have. It's iconic. And it's, oh, look, honey, we just had a great dinner. And let's take a picture with me with the lobster boats behind us." Great. I think it's good for the town. But all of a sudden they start getting used to it and they think it's part of the fee, and that they're allowed to put their boat there, and they are with my permission. But then they start quarreling a little bit, and a couple of guys that use it heavily in the spring and fall, but not in the summer because they fish in Rockport, they're like, "Geez, can I put my boat there all summer long?" I said, "Well, yes and no." And so there starts a little quarrel, because then when other guys that are paying a fee will come in and say, "I'm getting tired of working around these boats that are here all the time." And I tell them, "Guys, you guys got cell phones, call each other up and work a little bit. You need that?" Or a lot of times they'll tell me, "Hey, we're bringing this in. Can that boat move?" And it's working. But I just kind of want to make sure that we realize that I don't want these permit holders. I want to just be professional and call them that. I mean, they're longtime local people that fish here, but in the end, they have a permit to use that spot, which is supposed to be managed by the harbor master, and it is. It's such a gray area. I'm managing it the best way that I think is going to maximize best use of that. And I keep telling them, don't screw this up, guys. Don't make it so I make it so nobody can stay there unless you're unloading your lobsters. And then you got to get your boat out of here, and no one sees your boats ever. And it's harder for you, and it's not good for the town. I put that in there because sometimes I feel like I just want to make it open. I want to make it kind of open in the air that this is, sometimes it's a pain in my cartouche by doing that, by letting them use that in a way that's, again, harbor master 23 years. I'm kind of working within the gray area of what the ordinance is telling me how to manage that area.
So could this be solved? Yep, Jim.
Well, just a question, Steve. Just wondering if putting up a sign that says, docking
Dockage.
by permission of harbor master only would,
That wouldn't hurt. That wouldn't hurt to do that. So these guys see it every day.
Also,
I talk to them all the time, about it, and they know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
I was going to say exactly that. I mean, I think signage would be a good thing. But also, I wonder if within these, in response to these applications, if you will, there ought to be a clarification from the town of what this license gives you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The other licenses, it's quite clear what you're getting, what you're paying for, et cetera. If there's any confusion with that, I think, and this would be probably something that Jody would create, I would assume, a little thing that just says, here's your, you have been approved if the select board approves it. Here's what you get.
Here's the
You
use.
get a loading and a dock for loading and unloading.
Yep.
Your goods.
Yeah.
And there is a dock available that for repairs, service, whatever, with permission of the harbor master.
Yep.
Done. That way there's no like, oh, well, I thought I got this, or I thought I got
Yeah,
that.
no, that's a good idea. It's like, well, I'm loath to do that because it feels like I'm a teacher on a playground with kindergartners, but no.
I don't think it's even with kindergartners. I think it's just, I know I like, it's clarity.
Clarification.
It's
Good
black and white.
idea.
This is what we got.
Yep.
So I think that would be, that's my suggestion, is that that way we're not singling out any one operator, one fisherman. We are saying we would, if we do, we would recommend, renewal of all of these license applications. We also would suggest that signage be placed, dockage by permission of the harbor master only, or whatever, however you want to say it, and that the
Small letter.
the parameters of the
Clarification of use.
of-
Yeah.
of use, yep, and permissions be included with that.
Where would that clarification goes on?
It would be literally, I think, a letter from the
Yeah.
town.
Or part of the
harbor,
application. We
or-
can put on a part of the application. Every year when they apply, it'll say, well, it'll be a small paragraph. Here's clarification of use for this permit.
Sure.
So you've got another boat joining your fleet, the pump out boat, right? So
Correct.
that's taking place of, I mean, will that be docked at that space now, or?
So the tugboat, the aluminum tugboat would always be parked
Right,
there.
but that's gone, and now you're gonna have the old pump out boat.
The old pump out I'm gonna find a spot for that next to where the Grace Bailey and Mercantile used to raft up. Now it's just the Mercantile. The way her bow comes in, I can manipulate. I told Ray and those guys to slack their lines, but so the Merc's off that dock and he's got that loading ramp, and I can squeeze that boat right in there with fenders. And it doesn't take, so it's a spot that really no one else can use, but we can use it. I was using that the last 2 years and it's working pretty good.
Well, and I'm looking at the diagram of the docks, and aren't there actually there's 3 spaces in this run.
Correct.
One of which we're saying it'd be for the immediately adjacent to the ramp is where you're saying would be the service dock, call it that, for the fishermen, loading in or permission only. So there's one. Then there's one that's a hard right, I guess I'd call it, that could be used for a harbor master boat. And there's another one. So you would have room even in there.
Correct.
Because I think it's important that we don't look for solutions that preclude other options. And by that, what I'm saying there is we do currently have in the ordinance dockage for 2 windjammers on the end of the dock, essentially. One of them has left, but and if the mercantile, for instance, were going to leave, I would want to, I think we should be looking at how to handle that dock so that we could put 2 windjammers there, owned by different owners.
Ooh. If that's, you think that's what we should do, then we can do it.
I think we should look at it.
Yeah.
Because I think
It's a great idea.
and I think we all agree that the windjammers provide something significant for the town, and we want to support that. So anything we can do to facilitate the return of another windjammer, I think would be worth it. Money well spent. So anyway, that's all a way of saying, I think we have to be careful that we don't move your one harbor master boat so that if it's a temporary basis, fine.
It's
You
all
know what I mean?
temporary.
Yeah,
It's all
exactly.
temporary.
This all may change. So, all right, well, we've gone through the fishermen. Do we have further discussions on the fishermen applications? None. Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we approve all fishermen
Thank you, Mark.
boat applications.
Want to do it the conditions of signage and clarification?
I think it's with a
wording on the
recommendation.
No,
I wouldn't do that.
it's-
application? No, just approve.
Yeah, I got your advisement.
Because that's really a
I'll take it.
management. I think that gets into management at that point.
Yeah.
The only thing that-
Need to be in the motion.
No.
Doesn't know.
Okay.
The only thing that concerns me about that is the weight you seem to put on one individual. I mean, you've reviewed all the day sailors, all the windjammers, and all the fishermen. And I know there's been constant reports of wakes and speeding and all that, which none of that shows up on any of the recommendations in any of their reports. But yet, we have, one guy, there's just one application that was responded. And I'm just wondering why? And is that like the top priority? And is that that big of an issue?
No, I wouldn't read into it like that. I think, Mark, the fact is that I've been dealing with this for 15 years and it's not getting worse. It's just that I'm just getting more tired of it, of having to put that effort in and seeing that there's that, because I want to maximize the use of that area. It wouldn't be a problem if I was just like right in the beginning, it was like, absolutely not. You can't leave your boat there. Go to your mooring, but that I think would diminish, the whole ideology of how I've managed, which is just try to eke out a little more from this great asset. But when you do that, you open yourself up to things like this. I can deal with it. I just wanted to be open with you guys on
Keep us in the loop.
exactly.
I appreciate your honesty on that.
All right, so do we have a motion on?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a
Mark,
second?
motion.
Yep. Any further, it's coming up. Any further discussion on the commercial fisherman applications? Seeing none? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. All right, last one. Harbor Master's report.
Good night.
You missed the non-agenda items. Are you going to ask me to take something out of?
I did, and I apologize for that, for being here late, but I had a thought on the fee schedule.
Oh, okay.
Can we back up to that on the day sale or the windjammer applications, all right? You know how we were going to add
And we just voted on that, didn't we?
the pump out fees to the fee? All right, I was looking at that and I was thinking about that and what it actually would look like is that we just raise the fees for the.
But we're going to actually state includes pump out service.
I know, but if we had the windjammer fee and then below that, we just had an annual pump out fee. That way it shows that we haven't raised the fees and we've just stabilized the pump out fees. And that way, 2 years down the road, it's like, we forget that it includes pump outs and it's like, well, that's the fee and maybe we ought to start charging for pump outs. And it just clarifies
Put
it
an
a little bit.
asterisk next to it or something and say, this, and make sure that stays. This includes a $100 pump out fee.
I mean, I think that's what we voted on before, was to say includes pump out service.
Yeah, so it's already there.
So it's already there.
Great minds think alike.
I think you could probably end up with people saying, well, I don't want to pay the pump out fee because they
Right.
go 3
Correct.
miles out.
Well,
And I think this does, what I like about doing it this way is that it does incentivize people to use it. They've
Yep.
already paid for it.
Yep.
To Bruce's point, they can't say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go here. Da, da, da. Nope. Just use it. We want them to use it all the time. So yeah, I think.
Okay.
What else we got, Steve?
okay, a couple things. One is I've been getting some quotes on things, different people for like to rebuild the 8 Steamboat Landing floats. I mean, I have an idea from one person. I got Proc, I got Two Harbor Marine. They haven't come back yet, except for with basically a basic estimate, $19,000 per float. Custom floats. I met with Henry Sino, and he's a representative of custom floats in Portland. And originally, he's like, "We don't do this style. Be better off doing with this company." But he came back the next day and said, "You know what? I've been thinking about it, and take a look at this." And he wrote up this whole diagram saying we could do it like this, just very close to what we have, and really reinforced corners with big steel. And I'm like, and it came in 14.6 per float. So I was like, I'm definitely going to keep this, entertain this as an option. So Dan Ford came in. He did a lot of work to those ramparts, the concrete ramparts 5 years ago. So basically, half of that system, down low looks like the day we put it in. The other half is, as you know, gets bashed. And as the concrete slabs themselves weakened and the connectors weakened, every storm, the more years that it got older, the easier it was to watch it get tossed around. So to fix the whole front half is $22,000, Dan Ford. So that would be a fix, which FEMA would say you're replacing it the way it was. That's an option. I'm also looking with Dave St. Laurent to see if a company can come in and be like, yeah, we're going to pour a gigantic slab here. Half it's going to be 120-inch, massive rebarb concrete slab. And we'll see what that costs. But just so you know, I'm in the process of doing that. Also, the pump out boat we got the okay from Pam Parker. And so I said, I can't start on this, get the new boat until I get a letter saying, yep, we're going to reimburse you 90%. I finally got that. And that's in the process of happening. I would make it so when you're down at the harbor, look at the Two Harbor Marine barge where it is right now. About 3 days ago, I told you, Mr. Chairperson, that I wanted to put a new inner harbor float in place. So I told Brad and Adam to put their float exactly where I want, their barge exactly where I want that new float. So you guys can look and say, okay, it's literally right behind the PG Willie float. And that most eastern line, the most western line, which kind of curves around the harbor as you come in. If you're looking at it from a drone, that PG Willie float's here. And then you've got, the town float here, the day sailor float here. So, it's where there's a lot of traffic. So I told them to follow that curve and, come in like this and put it right there. That's where it would be.
And that's where it is now.
That's where the float is now. And if you look at that, where it is, that is as wide as an actual 6-foot float and then 2 boats on either side of it. So that you're looking at it. That's the maximum you could ever have impingement on that area. And I definitely think it's going to work. But I said, leave it there all winter. They literally dropped 2 blocks there. And that's where they're going to keep their barge. Because I said, could you do that? And he said, yeah, we'll do that. We'll show you that. And so anyway, take a look at that.
Cool.
I think it's a good idea. The only objection I would have is whenever I would mention it to people, Dennis from the Angelique is like, well, he's got the big steel windjammer. But now that again, take a look at it. It's not set in stone. Well, actually it is. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool. Anything else? Elliot?
Steve, regarding steamboat dock replacement, is there a timeline for accomplishing that?
Well, yeah, I'm getting these quotes, Elliot. So when I go to the budget committee in a month or whenever we go, 2 months, I'm going to say, I need this for 2025. So that system that we have, which is 23 years old, those floats, I'm going to cobble them one more year, to make it so they work. And then hopefully retire them to the Inner Harbor. My idea is to make a new float system off of Library Park, and that will ground itself out at low tide. And that'll be I'm going to get an aluminum rack, and that's going to be for kayaks and canoes. We can move all kayaks and canoes to that, and then open up use for the falls, dinghy area.
2025 for the steamboat dock replacement is your personal goal.
Yeah.
And it's how long you think they can last.
I think so. We just finished the 23rd year. Those floats served us 23 years. And as you know, they get the Jesus kicked out of them once in a while. And so, yeah, they're old enough.
And you're soliciting.
Could I actually rebuild them with some money and make it so they last another 5 years? Yeah, probably, but I don't think it's a good
We've
idea.
done that a bunch. You've done that a lot.
Yeah,
And you're soliciting proposals for replacement of the ramp. Is that correct?
the ramp, yes, the concrete ramp. I'm looking to, remember, I'm working along with Valerie from FEMA, because the Christmas storm, that ramp got weakened a lot. And so luckily they realized it. And so it's a very good chance that as far as the replacing it the way it was, we will get reimbursed 80% of that cost. I can't promise you that, but we're working towards that goal, which is a help.
Is that tied up with the rest of the FEMA?
The Christmas storm, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just an aside, but is that actually moving?
Well, like anything federal, it's moving slowly, but it is. Like the wheels of justice for this republic.
That's right.
It moves slowly, but it moves.
Anything else? I think that takes us through it. Next meeting. Someone always reminds me. Let's see what the next meeting would be. Would be the second Tuesday. So that would be the 9th.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks for your work.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, Steve.
Happy holidays.
Your
Does the
love,
9th work for you guys? Actually,
devotion to this lovely harbor.
yeah, then I can probably make the 9th work. Does the 9th work for you guys?
Does what?
9th is
9th of
good.
January?
9th is good.
All right, let's stick with it. I will tell you that there is a chance I might change that one. But it's been a while since I moved one, so I really think it's time.
Don't move it past the 18th. I'll be out of here.
It's only been 1 or 2 meetings since you.
Since I
Yeah.
moved one. Exactly. So I think it's about time.
So it's Tuesday, the 9th, is that correct?
Tuesday the 9th. Always, I mean, the meetings are always the second Tuesday of the month.
Yeah.
So
Just a note, I won't be here because I'm going
Unless
in
Josh
California.
changes.
I don't think that's going to affect you, but I'm going to be in California.
You could
I
Zoom.
mean, I could Zoom perhaps, but I really don't know exactly what's going.
thank you guys.
Oh, well, that'd be 5 a.m. California.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, anybody else? Stephanie.
Where was Sophie today?
Sophie has just returned from Paris. Not able to. How's it going, Richard?